Welcome to Business Mastery with Dawn Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we are diving in to talk about all things business partnerships. We're going to be talking about what happens when they go sideways. We're going to be talking maybe about some of the human toll. And then we're also going to be discussing your obligations to the business partner that you have and the business that you guys either started or you brought someone on later. So I have Wendy here. We're going to dive into all the things. How are you, Wendy?
I am doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
Sure. My name's Wendy Meadows, and I have two careers. One is I've been a family law attorney for 20 years now, which is kind of hard to believe. And about 5 years ago or so, I turned off the spigot to litigation, meaning I no longer litigate, I no longer do trial work unless I represent the child, because that is why I went to law school in the first place. So if you see me in court, it's because I'm there with my hat on as a best interest attorney. But what I do now in the family law context, I primarily mediate. I do something called parent coordination, which is similar to mediation. It's helping parents continue to know how to co-parent. And I also do like prenups, postnups, and that sort of thing, or guide people through an amicable divorce. Again, I'm not in court anymore. And that's just half my career. The other half of my career, I'm a coach. I'm a coach primarily to lawyers. It started off by coaching my fellow burnt out lawyer moms so she could find herself and figure out her work-life balance. And that has since evolved to helping other women or other people go solo or go double. I've done a going double as well. People go break off from their firms, go solo, and or helping working along with managing partners to help struggling associates or other people in the law firm, and I've delved into other things as well. But essentially, I help. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help people get clarity.
I love that. All right. So let's start with your story about breaking off from your law firm, because I think that's a great place to start with the business relationship context and then what happens when somebody leaves.
Right. So I left my firm in 2018, and it was a really, really, really hard decision because that was the firm that I started at right out of law school. So 2005, 2018, I was there. There's the firm that made me partner in 5 years. I essentially became the managing partner, and it was my home for a really, really long time. So you can imagine that decision was a really hard one to make. And it took me probably years. And I finally got honest with myself and just finally decided it was time to leave. I made the decision, I think, June of 2018, and I was up and running by August 13th, 2018. So it actually happened very quickly once I had the conversation with my partners at the time.
All right. So this is where we want to dive in, that breakup discussion. And here's the thing. You were making the decision to break off. You were a partner, you were a business partner, not just a lawyer partner. And then you decided that you were going to leave and break up, if you will, with the firm. Can you talk about, I know it took you a long time to make that decision, but what was it like having to tell everybody else you were leaving?
Like telling my partners,
Yeah.
oh, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And what I did to get ready for that discussion, well, other than like talking with my family and friends, I went back to therapy. As I told the therapist everything going on, and she helped me like come to terms with it and like lose some of the guilt, right? So I felt an immense, immense amount of guilt for leaving. So I rehearsed with her a little bit, like the things I should say. And I actually called my career services from college, and I had a discussion with them, and they walked me through also like a good way to have the breakup conversation. And then I rehearsed that sucker so many times. So many times I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I still remember my first line was, "This is the hardest conversation I've ever had in my life," because at that point it was, right? It was. And but I think I rehearsed it so many times by the time I sat down and told them, I was like a robot. Like it just all the words just came out of my mouth, like with no emotion, I think, at all, because I was terrified and scared, and I had rehearsed it maybe a little bit too much, and it just all came out. But it was an awful feeling. It was not fun at all.
All right. So thank you for your honesty and authenticity, because I know there's somebody listening to this or watching it on YouTube and they're like, yeah, for the last 2 years, I have really felt like my partner is no longer my partner the way we anticipated we were going to be. So thank you for that. And let's talk a little bit about maybe why people grow out of these relationships.
And this one, it was so multifaceted, right? So the first thing that comes to mind for a long time, and I think a lot of small firms do this, is you look at your small partnership as family and you start to mistake them for family. And yes, while of course you have each other's backs and you want each other to succeed, at the end of the day, it's not actually your family. Your family are the people at home that you are feeding, that you are raising, that you are trying to get into the right school, that you are making sure is developed into a wonderful human being. Like that's your family. And your work family maybe was your family before you had kids or before you were married, everything else, but they're not your family anymore. And just like in families, there's divorces, right? And people change as they grow up. People change. The same thing happens in business. And I think people's goals change as well in terms of as the business grows. Like one person might want to make a heck of a ton of money because again, they have private school to pay for or college or this, so they want to take nice vacations. And someone else in the business might not care as much about money. They just want to come, maybe work a couple hours, and that's okay, and kick off, and they don't really care. And so then, you're gonna have different, like, work ethics in a business that way. So that's one of the pieces. I could probably go on and on, but I wanna make sure I'm letting you ask me questions in here too.
Well, this is a huge piece of this is I mean, so I'm gonna put my business lawyer hat on for just 2 seconds, and I'm gonna say, "Hey, when you start an entity and it gets its own federal entity ID number, right, the employer ID number, and it becomes like this new thing, this new legal person, from a law standpoint, everybody who's signed up and said, 'I'm gonna make that baby,' has a duty to that baby, right? To do their best to make that baby, be the best it is. But unlike actually having children, the relationships that run those entities, like you said, they evolve and they change, and maybe there's some disagreement about direction or disagreement about before we were recording you were talking about effort, for example. And so, from that place, let's go ahead and continue back to what you were talking about, yeah, this is a hard thing to do. It's a divorce thing to do. But you and I Googled the statistic. Why don't we tell the entire audience how many business relationships fail in the first 5 years?
65%.
Okay, that's
Based on the Google.
yeah. I mean, like, all right. And how many people divorce overall?
From my understanding, it's at 51%, 51 and rising.
Right. So if we were just to break this out, and I don't math, right? I stayed in you know, liberal arts just like every other attorney, right? We can we can say basically out of every 3 businesses that start up with partners, 2 of those 3 within 5 years will not have the same founders, or something else is gonna happen. And then this is where we get into the "it wasn't you, it was me" conversation, right? Yeah, kinda.
That's certainly how I structured my breakup talk, right? And that is how I was advised to structure it. It was all about me, and all the reasons I had to leave, which were all true, which were
Right.
all, but there's another piece to that as well.
Yeah. So, I think we can parallel this kind of with your family law experience, this idea of I don't think that you're giving the same effort. I don't think you're giving us the same attention. Can we talk a little bit about that from your experience and frame, and then how that does translate into those real feelings as business partners? Because I think that we sometimes we minimize that piece of it, right? We minimize it. It's just business. And as a business lawyer, let's like my signature line, it's just business. Nobody's taking the couch, and nobody's fighting over grandma's ring. It's just business. But I know that sometimes that can sound very like I don't care about the partnership, but from your family law perspective and all the years of dealing with breakups, let's talk about this.
Yeah. And it's funny, it's like it's just business, but also just business is just hours and just dollars. And like hours and dollars is what make law firms like go around. And it's also, how we end up paying ourselves. So, sort of my aha moment came about because I started a side business back in 2016. So before I left my firm, and I was very nervous that someone would try and take it away from me, right? Is I'm like, if my partners find out I have this whole other business going on, obviously they're going to be paying more attention to my hours. Like I wanted to make sure I was still a good partner. I didn't want to piss them off because again, like we said, like we want to give the same effort. So in 2016, I started a very detailed spreadsheet that I went through it every month to make sure, like comparing everybody's hours, comparing the money everyone brought in, et cetera, et cetera. And I was really proud of myself for like the first year because I was like, wow, even though I'm not working on Mondays, I had mommy Mondays at the time. And even though I have to kick off early on Fridays to get my kids from preschool, and even though I have this whole other business, like my hours are like, I was still pretty much, there's like three partners, and me and one partner were pretty much neck and neck every month, and the other partner was not. I was proud of myself. I was like, okay, cool, this is amazing. I'm not hurting them. This is great. So for a year, I was really proud. And then as time started going on, I said, wait a second, this doesn't translate right. Like if I'm not, I'm most of the admin for the firm, and yeah, I'm proud of myself, but this doesn't make any sense. And this doesn't feel, it doesn't feel good anymore. And I started slowly but surely like taken advantage of a little bit. I felt like, I was doing the most work, bringing in a good amount of money. And I was like, why am I not doing this for myself? Right? Like, why am I working so freaking hard? And I feel so guilty about this. I have this whole detailed spreadsheet. No one else seems to care as much as me. And it just started like slowly building, building, building. And then where it got dangerous is I noticed I started getting resentful. And when you get resentful, like, you might like project your feelings on other people and start thinking they might be toxic. But truthfully, like I was probably starting to bring some toxicity into the workplace. And that's not me. That's not good. It's not my vibe. It's the whole reason I'm not litigating anymore. It's like I don't want to be the problem. I want to be the fixer. And just slowly but surely, I realized we were trying too hard and the fit wasn't a good fit anymore. For all those reasons, we had different, I don't want to say different work ethics because they did work hard. We just had different ways of looking at things, I guess, or different ways of being productive and different ways of wanting to see where the business would grow as well. And that was the other piece. The other piece was I had all these cool ideas of how I wanted to bring our business into like 2018. This is right when chat bots were becoming a thing and you could add it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, guys, wouldn't that be so cool? And like, no. Oh, guys, shouldn't we market in this way? No. Shouldn't we? No.
Well, the legal profession is always cutting edge anyway, and we change very quickly to adapt, right? I mean, yeah, that's one of the last industries to actually adopt anything that we would consider progressive in any way. So I get that. So I know there are going to be people who are listening in and they're starting to get that resentment a little bit. And they're probably looking around and going, why do I feel like I'm pulling so much more weight? Why am I not being heard anymore? And for you, it was 13 years, but the statistic says 5 years. So I mean, there's some room here to talk about that. Um, you had kind of I'm gonna say a long runway between the feelings of resentment and the actual, if you will, divorce, right? Um, do you think anything would have changed if you would have pulled the trigger earlier to leave? Or, did you have conversations around your resentment? Was people open to it or not? Because I know that's the other thing. I have sat with so many business owners. I was like, well, I tried to talk about the subject, but nobody would listen. Or every time I tried to bring up my concerns, I just got shut down. So, I mean, where were you kind of on that spectrum?
Like a little bit of all of the above. And I definitely think I would have done things a little bit differently if I could go back in time. So what I mean by that is I definitely sat down with the partners, like with a spreadsheet at a certain time. And I was like, what's going on here? And some of the feedback I got was like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And therefore, that's why. I'm like, cool. Well, then give me that task too. I'll just do that too. And at that time, it was like QuickBooks. I'm like, just give me the QuickBooks out of the books, which I'm grateful for now because now I know how to do QuickBooks and I have two businesses and I do the QuickBooks myself. And I love it. I don't know. I'm a weirdo, but so I'm grateful for that opportunity. But it again, like movement didn't happen. I'm like, well, what should we do about this? And what should we? And I kept waiting for this like fairy godmother to like come in and look at everything and be like, all right, guys, this is what you need to do. Like have basically an outsider come in and get us back on track. And I think I looked into hiring a consultant at one point, but then I think I was afraid they would tell me no, so I didn't run with it. Because sometimes I would have ideas and I was shot down, like you said, or I would have ideas and they're like, "Oh, Wendy's just with another." 'Cause I have a lot of ideas. They're like, "Oh, Wendy with another idea," and I was blown off or had my they rolled their eyes at me, so that didn't feel good. Um, and or just got sick and tired of asking or trying. And then what I wish I had done is probably push the consultant piece to have like that outside third party come in and just look at our numbers and have a talk as a neutral person so I didn't have to be the bad guy. I think if something like that happened, maybe we could have stayed together longer, maybe. But I'm really happy to be a solo, so I don't think I want to go backwards. I probably wish I was even more forthcoming in my discussions and more honest about my feelings, maybe not just the numbers. That could have gone better. And or like if I could like advise someone else going into it now, and sounds like this is what you do, is there should be discussion, like just like in a marriage, or just like there should be like a prenup that says, okay, if we feel this, how do we do this? If we feel that, how do we do that? And we're going to talk about this. And here's our pre-listed set of questions we have to answer, even if it's uncomfortable, because that's our homework that we're doing that. And I think that would have made things smoother for sure, right?
Yeah, and having a conversation about direction. Do we agree on investing, in new equipment, or are we going to hire somebody, right? Having those discussions pretty regularly, I think, helps them stay on track as far as partnerships go. But to your point, people evolve, their goals change, they have families, they want to travel, they want to move. Like there's all kinds of reasons. But I do want to also talk about you're saying the prenup. Can we talk about the operating agreement or the bylaws that so many businesses are operating without? They go to LegalZoom, they get the LLC. No shade to LegalZoom, but they go to LegalZoom, they get the LLC, and then they get this either a boilerplate operating agreement that just says you own 50% and you own 50%. Or they don't have any operating agreement at all. They spend $100, they send it to the Secretary of State or 800, whatever it is in your jurisdiction, and they get this LLC number, and then they never have an operating agreement. So now it's not like there are no rules, it's you get the default rules, and those default rules may not actually be what you guys thought you were doing.
So I guess we did not make decisions in that regard, but I don't want to say I got lucky, but all me and the 2 partners all treated each other it was painful. It was extremely painful, but we treated each other extremely fairly. Looking back at it now with hindsight at 7 years, holy moly, they were amazing in that regard. Like I truly, truly they were. But no, we had somebody draft an operating agreement, and I looked at it, and there's parts I didn't like in it, and we just never ended up signing it, and we just didn't. And then
You were under default rules.
the other partner, and we never ended up signing anything for him either. It was just like our K1s, was like, what was it? A 34, 33, 33. Does that add up right? Right. One partner's 34. I was 33. He was 33. That's how we did our K1s. That's how we kind of distributed distributions, kind of, but we still sort of, it was trust. It was because, like I said, we operated as a family for a long time and we did do beautiful things for each other as a family. But would I advise that? No, like not at all. Like I was in a very interesting microcosm of there was, as much as it broke down, there was still a level of trust there. So that's good.
Right, yeah, and that statistic of the first 5 years, I mean, when you're opening a new business and you're first starting out, like, what is the trust level? I trust you're always gonna put the business first, and then, the first bottleneck or the first employee issue or the first lawsuit, right, or something like that happens, and then, or the first time you're almost gonna miss payroll and somebody has to reach into their personal account to cover it. Those are, like, real things, like, I wanna be so real on this podcast episode and say, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Yeah, this is what's going on," it's you're not the only one, for sure, but, building that trust you made partner in 5 years, so they worked with you for 5 years before you became a partner. So many people start up as co-founders, and they just jump in, and they think they know what's involved. And you and I talked a little bit about how marriage counseling exists. I'm not sure business partner counseling sorta exists.
Good. And there should be like yes, an operating agreement, but like operate like probably like legal. talking about legal Zoom, it's probably or chat right now. It's so black and white, and it's probably such legalese, no one understands it. But really, they need to get into the juicy stuff about that's more human, right? And more, well, what happens if I decide to move, or what happens if I die? People don't, with the buy sells, right? Or what happens if we just don't like doing this anymore? I did have a recently. It was a post nup in a case like they want to stay married, like they're very happy married, but they have very intense, like, 2 businesses that make a lot of money, and they came for me to draft the post up, and really it was what do we do in the event of the business? It was more about how do we divorce the business and who gets what, and like, arranging, what do we do with the credit cards? What do we do? Who are we allowed to tell? Like, it was more like the squishy stuff that I don't think is talked about enough.
You're right, it isn't, and, I've, um I've often had the good fortune, if you will, of being like the lawyer of last resort, where people have tried to work it out. They've tried to settle their differences, and then ultimately it's like, hey, we have these things and it's just not gonna work. So let's talk about some different exits. And then also maybe some of the feelings around those exits. So somebody wants to leave and you have it in an agreement that you can buy that other person out. Or, then you maybe get into the fight over how much is the business actually worth, right? Then you have the, well, we'll just dissolve the whole thing and then we can go our separate ways. Okay, but what if you have an SBA loan or those emergency loans that came out during COVID, right? So, there are a couple of different ways to leave, but let's kind of talk about some of those things, especially in the way you've seen family law work.
Right.
That's a
So
huge piece. I
how
suggest you don't wanna tell the SBA that you're thinking about doing this without writing them a check, right? That's what the statute says.
And it's so similar to divorce, right? Because you have to figure out what to do with the house. Like, and there's a mortgage on the house, comparable like SBA loan. And it's like, or being bought out and you just get to leave everything. But then the other person's left with holding the albatross of a house and all the crap in the house that nobody wants anymore, right? Like, and how do you get rid of it? So my experience was that they would have to buy me and again, I give them mad props, like, because they still bought me out. They bought me out. I was reasonable about it, right? And it was over the course of 3 years, again, for my payment to come to me. And it was still, but even though we reached a number and we reached it relatively quickly, it was painful. It was really painful because obviously they thought they were giving me more than they should give me, and I thought I wasn't getting my full value. And I will tell you, I did everything I could to be fair to them. Like up until like the day, my last day, I was still taking consults and I wasn't making sure that the business, like my first business, no, the law firm I was at, got the money, right? Even though I didn't say, hey, just call me in 2 weeks, come consult with me over here. Now, obviously, in family law, like my clients are going to follow me. I think everybody but one followed me to my new place, which is beautiful about being a family law attorney because you have like instant book of business. So, any family law attorneys here with a book of business, and you are trying to decide, do I become partner and have a crazy huge buy in or go off on my own? Like, let's have a conversation because I have a lot of feelings about it, just because of the whole buyout piece. Uh, but it was, that was difficult. That was
Yeah.
not. Oh,
And I'm just gonna say, yeah, I mean, I think that you're bringing up things that people aren't necessarily considering, and unfortunately, when business lawyers get involved, just like when family lawyers get involved, oftentimes it's because one side's trying to burn Georgia on the way out, rather than just if we could come to a property agreement, if we could come to this, if we could come to that, we probably wouldn't need to get, those guys involved, or at least have them review our agreement and make sure, if there's an indemnity or something like that that needs to be in there. But generally, if we agree on all the terms, it's not gonna be as expensive, and we're not gonna drag this to the courts, and we're possibly not even gonna need all the forensic accounting, right? So what have you seen over the years where, you know, people are able to come to an agreement? Like you said, you got into an agreement with your partner. It was violently fair from your perspective. And, those who want to burn Georgia, like, warning signs kind of thing where if you are in a relationship right now with a business partner and you're feeling unsure or you're feeling taken advantage of, or resentment starting to build, and you're thinking about an exit, are there some things that we could be looking for or looking at to prepare ourselves for whether or not we have to, come for a fight or we're just going to come for a discussion?
Well, most of it is like looking at yourself and investing in your future and like what can you do without them, right? So looking at it that way, like I knew I was going to be okay no matter what happened. Like, but when I made the decision to go solo, I made this insane spreadsheet and I that's the first thing I work with people now when they go with me to go solo. I have this spreadsheet. The beautiful thing they see, they don't need to work that much to like double their income. Like that's like when they do my spreadsheet, they're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes, like this can't be right." I'm like, "It's right. You just have way less overhead now."
But I was going to say, yeah, you're no longer paying for 16 paralegals. Woohoo.
But so for me, and I think again, what like I left knowing, okay, if I don't get my buyout, I'll be okay. Like I'll be okay. It'll be great money to have, and I would love to have it, but like I'll be okay. And looking at my future and how well I'm going to be able to do on my own, I'm going to be okay. And some of it, like in divorce too, we have to do the same sort of things. Like you might leave a situation with not everything you should have under the law, but like you lose the emotional drama, like, you don't have to deal with that, like, and there's a cost benefit analysis being like, "You know what? You can keep that. That's okay, 'cause I'm gonna go play in this play box over here and this play box over here. I'm gonna start, like, growing exponentially, and I'm gonna be okay." So I think that mindset is helpful, like, I wasn't looking to hurt them, I didn't want to hurt them at all, and I know they didn't wanna hurt me, but it's just like, to what end, right? Is also family law bar in Baltimore County is small, and the last thing I wanted to do again, the whole my whole thing in all of this is I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't wanna hurt them when I started my business, and I also didn't wanna hurt them because I knew I would have this other business coming down the line too. It's like the life coaching, and I knew when I would be putting time and energy into that, I knew my law income would go down as it has, as it makes sense, it should, right? I knew it would go down. I didn't want that to hurt them either, right? And I think at the same point, they don't want to hurt me. But, was a very long way of answering your question that I can't remember how we began.
No, it was a great reframe on the mindset piece, that the mindset leaving, if you will, you have to be
Right.
in the position to decide whether or not you even want to engage in a fight, right? So I said, how do you know if you put your arm around? Well, you're saying that's your decision. You can decide to fight it all the way out, or you can decide not to fight it all the way out, which is fantastic. Because I think the way I was thinking of it is like if your toxic partner is doing X, Y, and Z, or if you're feeling really taken advantage, but you're right, it's 100% on you. If you want to leave a business, you get to decide how clean or how ugly you get to leave the business. I tell yeah, I do wanna just I mean, I wanna give, like, mad props for that because that is absolutely true if you make the decision to leave.
I had 2 people coaching me at the time, right? So I had one person coaching me, Wendy like, at first, I wasn't even gonna ask for the buyout at all. I was like, because I felt so guilty, and I felt like I didn't wanna ask for the money, and she was like, "Wendy, like, you put the money in, you deserve it, you're going to ask for the money." So she was, like, on one shoulder encouraging me, like, "Yes, you feel guilty, yes, you feel like you're betraying, but it is a business. It's a business, it's not your family, and this is like, you need to ask for this." So I had her sitting on the shoulder, otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten the money I got. Now, at the very end, we did start fighting over, like I think we were fighting over, like, $4,000 at the end. And then I had this, like, crazy spreadsheet, and I was like I'm like, "But I am owed this because of this," and I got email back, "But no, you're not," 'cause and it was starting to get to a place that wasn't good, and, like, my stress was coming here, and I was, like, freaking out to the point I couldn't even look at it anymore, so I sent it to my other coach. I'm like, "Can you please look at this and just tell me who if am I being unreasonable? Are they being unreasonable?" Like, I couldn't I was so out of my head, and this is where I advise too, like, you need someone walking with you in this, you can't do this alone, or you shouldn't do you need a voice of reason. And she was like, "Wendy, it's $4,000. If you stop, like, fighting over about this, you're going to be fine. Like, just move on." I'm like, "Okay." And I need to hear that from her too. So I'm like, "You know what? We're good. Let's just move on." And I could, again, get my mindset right and actually do my work as opposed to, like, argue with people who I didn't really care about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It becomes my 2 sayings that I like is when I talking to anybody is everything is negotiable until it isn't. And I've even said to people, if you want me to put in this agreement that they have to wear a clown nose when they deliver the settlement check, I'll put it in there. I don't think it's necessary, but that is how far I'm willing to take this idea that everything is negotiable until it isn't. And then the other side of that is it's just a business decision in a lot of cases. And you have to do, like you said, the cost benefit analysis of when is this worth my time, resources, and energy that I could be putting into something else? And when is it time to stand my ground? And, there is that true sort of self-conversation. I agree with you 100%. If you are thinking about leaving a business relationship in whatever jurisdiction, there are, attorneys that could probably sit down and take a quick look and see sort of where you're standing and really where you're at. Because I know in some cases, I've seen things, unfortunately, where it's like my partner locked me out and I want to sue them and I want to burn Georgia. And then you start asking the question, well, how old's your business? 6 months. What's your revenue?
I don't
About 40,000. Okay, and you want me to take this to court and demand 600,000? Like, where did you get that number from? It's because your feelings are hurt. And I'm not minimizing, by the way, unethical behavior and saying that it's okay to lock your partner out. And I'm definitely not also saying that there is a place to force people to do the right thing because they have to do what's right for the business. But we also have to look at what is a moral victory, if you will. I'm right, you're wrong, and what is the legal reality and what winning actually could look like, where maybe you get a little less over here, but you get so much more over there.
right? Right. Agreed.
I mean, it's complex. We're complex people, I guess. Like we're complex human beings. So in the other practice, right, of the setting up the solos, talk to me about how you help people make the decision to end those partnerships because obviously you're still in that advisory role.
Right. Oh, and then this is I think my favorite. This is one of my favorite.
Good, we got to it. I'm just kidding.
Like, I'm a hand holder. I'm a hand holder. I like being a hand holder. And the exciting thing about going solo that's like different than a divorce is, well, it's the same as a divorce if you're looking forward to the divorce. It's like you get to help someone start like the second or third or fourth part of their life, right? And you get to build it in a way that they want to build it. And it's exciting. It's fun. So first, someone hops on a call with me and we talk about all the reasons why they might want to leave. And I have like a simple calculator I use for that one so they can kind of see, okay, like if I want to work this many hours and this is how much I want to make, like what could my income be? And they're usually like, oh, wow, especially again, if they have a book of business they're bringing over with them. It's talking to them about my story and like kind of hearing more about what's going on in the firm. And sometimes it's me disabusing them of certain notions, like where I'm like, well, you're actually getting paid pretty well. Like you already get to work part time. You already have all this extra stuff over here. And it might be they need the reality talk of what they think is bad isn't actually that bad, especially in terms of like money. If they're a newer lawyer and they just don't same sort they don't understand how business works, right? Maybe they don't have a book of business and they don't understand that, oh, well, they need to work on their business development to bring more money into the firm so then their firm can pay them more. So it's a real conversation. I don't think everyone is built for going solo, for sure. You have to already kind of have a way in your brain, like how numbers work and like where you think you can go and or business. And then we talk through the breakup conversation and like, are they feeling guilty or is this partner someone they can work with? Because usually they're like wrestling with three things. So like, do I just stay? Do I go solo? Or hey, I could go work at this other firm. And so we kind of like that first 1 hour call, I do that for free and we just kind of like talk about all the things. And then if they decide to go solo with me, I hold their hand through the breakup. I let them practice it with me. We work on a bigger budget, way more in depth, so they understand exactly what it will cost them. And then again, all those are like little decisions. I have a Notion dashboard we use to like stay on track. And then I stay with them too through their first month of operating as a firm because a lot of times these people have never actually run bills and they don't know how to pay themselves and they don't really like know how it works in the mechanics. So I stay with them and I answer all those questions, I get them up and running. And so they feel comfortable once they finally have the training wheels off.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, leaving a business that is not serving you anymore is sometimes a good thing. And here's another thing. You talk about taking a book of business with you. Well, there's a lot of non-lawyers who listen into the podcast, and I would just like to frame that as maybe you have multiple revenue streams or multiple divisions, and some of them are ones that you like, and some of them are ones that your partner doesn't like, and maybe that's where the friction is. And maybe it's possible to quote unquote split the baby, meaning that the germane purpose of the business that stays with whoever's there is not the same as the business that somebody takes with them. And it can be, amicable. It doesn't have to get really super ugly. And the one that comes to the top of my mind is you could have a restaurant and catering, and instead of catering out of the restaurant, if you love one side of it and the other person hates one side of it, we could look at something like that where creative problem solving, where maybe the partnership itself doesn't work, but the passion behind why you started could still drive the bus.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like one way or the other, right? There can be hybrid that, again, with talking with other people, like maybe like a mediator or like another attorney, like you come up with a whole different situation that still works for everybody, right? Because you would probably in the catering restaurant business, you would still want some like referrals there, right? But maybe they have their own two business entities, but then like some sort of kickback. Oh, the restaurant gave a catering business this, the business gave the, like
Yeah.
come up with something totally brand new, right? Like,
Right. I mean, in that example, I'm kind of envisioning like maybe there's a party room where somebody can book something, at a brick and mortar location, and then there's somewhere where you're doing offsite stuff. And I can think of a ton of other industries. That one just kind of popped to the top of my head where there's multiple different ways to deliver or to serve. And maybe it is the delivery aspect of it or the labor side or something that one person just doesn't really like. And maybe it's okay to even split the business. And we know this happens all the time in tech too. You read the stories about apps and founders, and one person took one thing and created X thing. I don't mean X Twitter, I mean just X thing. And then one person, right? So Reid Hoffman made LinkedIn, right? Elon Musk ended up buying Twitter, right? But you get the idea. So it this conversation, if somebody is listening in and they're, like, feeling what you're describing, it doesn't mean you have to burn Georgia. It doesn't mean you have to dissolve everything. It doesn't definitely don't be what I call a petty Betty. You, like, don't list on Yelp that the business is permanently closed because you're really angry right now and you don't know what else to do. Yeah.
fire.
Oh my gosh.
It's gonna backfire so bad, and you just look like the dumb dumb. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, who's gonna wanna do business with you now if they see, like, you being a petty Betty?
But I don't have a better phrase for it. But yeah, that whole breach of fiduciary duty, right? So we agreed that we're gonna take care of this baby together. And like you were saying about a co-parenting agreement, you still have to co-parent until the baby either graduates or goes to college, it dissolves, or you each get weekends or whatever it is that you do. But yes, let's talk about this last thing in the terms of even family law. What happens when you start playing dirty?
Ugh. Like, in the business division?
In both and all, right? Because I can just see like business partnerships sometimes can dissolve into really ugly battles over things. And we know that we hear the stories. There's what like subreddits and YouTube channels and stuff that are dedicated to toxic exes and bad behavior. And you hear these things and you're like, they did what? Right? I mean, we do it in civil litigation anyway. It's like you did what? But let's talk about it. You know, what happens when you play dirty? What happens when you're just like, excuse me, F this, if we can't work together, we're not gonna work at all.
So what I have found, luckily, again, that was not my experience,
Yeah, right, right.
up to each other too, which is great, right? It's like, it's good. But what I've seen in other law firm divorces, family law firm divorces, is someone starts like chatting, right? And they start saying all the bad, like, and we hear both sides, like both like the firm talks bad about the person who left talks bad about the firm. And quite frankly, I look at them differently. I look at them like, I don't know if I want to refer you work. I mean, the end result is I'm not going to refer these people work. It seems like a lot of drama. So they are not at the top of my list when I refer work out because I refer a lot of work out. I still get a lot of calls, to litigate. So I kind of think less of that person. I think the general community thinks less of that person. So really, these people yapping about the other person, they're losing business is what's happening, right? Like that's what's happening behind the scenes. In the family law context, there's a paper trail. So when people start doing really dumb stuff, and I was at this speaking event recently, and this guy was from the audience was asking all these terrible questions. He's like, "Well, what if I just stall the divorce? Or what if I put the house into trust and get a HELOC and just spend all the money and take all the equity? And what if I just take her name off beneficiary? And what if I like all the questions he kept asking?" I was like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "Dude, if you do all those things in the context of a divorce, it's gonna backfire, 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 backfire. Because the minute that gets to court, because that case probably would get to court, the judge is not going to like you, and they're gonna give her everything she wants, pretty much, like, where they can,
Right.
within the law. But I don't see it working. Like, when you try and play dirty or chess in a way that's, like, is not so much chess as you think it is, um, I just see it backfiring. And at the end, it backfires in terms of dollars in your pocket. So, like, why? When you could have had this beautiful, as you can, amicable split, you're not spending time or energy on the split, and then people see how you handle that situation, and they're like, "Okay," like, for both people, and then they're gonna both those people are gonna have their increase in income as well. So,
Right. Yeah, and I would say just on the business side too, you get things in writing. There are awful emails that go back and forth, and those are admissible, right, in a lot of ways. So don't, think before you, call your business partner, all kinds of things. We all know like not to do that in the HR context of employees. Like I think most people are sort of smart enough not to berate their employees and make derogatory remarks or refuse to do accommodations or whatever on the HR side because they know that's not good. But then all of a sudden you and your business partner get into it and you're hitting send and it's like, "Oh, that's discoverable." we're gonna we're gonna admit that. Like we're gonna show it takes a little bit to show bad faith, but not as much as maybe you think, and when there's a pattern of bad faith, yeah, no, I agree with you, it can cost you everything.
and this is where I do tell people, and I go back and forth on what I'm about to say. This is where I'm like, use chat, put your email, filter your emails through Chat GPT, sanitize your emails, sanitize, sanitize, sanitize. And especially probably in the business context, legal context, etc. Where I do find, because I have my family law clients doing this as well, like sanitizing their emails via chat, is I do think we're starting to lose the humanity. Like we're losing people because now the computers are like deciding like how we actually communicate, and you can so tell when chat wrote it as opposed
Sure,
to.
sure.
But in the business context, that's probably okay because unfortunately, sometimes we need to take a little bit of the humanity out of it so we can look at it as a business deal and dollars and cents. Like humanity for the mindset, but like when we look at the math, let's like look at the math like a calculator as opposed to like a vengeful person, right? So kind of deciding where we can use chat to help us.
No, that's a great, great tip because, again, we don't want to necessarily litigate partnership dissolution or divorces. We want to be as amicable as possible. And my other saying, I told you I had two. So the one is everything's negotiable until it's no longer negotiable. But the other thing is, too, there's a point where you cannot reason with unreasonable people. And you also need to kind of know where that other bookend is, right? So it's like, we can negotiate anything. I'll get you the clown nose. I mean, if it's that important to you, we can get the clown nose. I don't advise it, but it just gives a silly context of like, you can negotiate anything. But yeah, there's also gotta be the other bookend that says this is now dissolving into absolutely unreasonable territory, and we just need some outside help, and we need to get this figured out before, both of us regret whatever our next email is gonna be.
In the divorce context, that's where I'm like, this case needs to go to trial. Not every case needs to go to trial in the divorce context, but some I'm like, we're just going to stop negotiating because I'm not going to throw more of your good money after bad. We just need to get in front of a judge and get this figured out as soon as we possibly can because we need outside help.
I love that. All right. So, where can people find you, particularly lawyers who may be listening and going, I've been feeling pretty resentful. I'm starting to feel like there's no longer a good fit. Hey, over the last 3 years, I've evolved as an attorney, as a person. I have new responsibilities or different lifestyle choices I want to make. I want to travel more, whatever it is. How can they find you?
Yes, probably the two easiest places. One, LinkedIn, Wendy Sarah Meadows, my middle name, Sare. Wendy Sarah Meadows on LinkedIn, or wendysmeadows.com. At the very top of that website too, there's like book a free call, and I'd be more than happy to have a chat with anybody about, hey, I'm thinking of leaving, or hey, I've already left and now I don't know what to do because I'm in over my head, etc. I would love to talk to anyone from your audience.
Amazing. All right. So we're going to put all of that in the show notes. So whether you listen to this on the week it launches or 2 months later, you can find Wendy and
Here.
you can reach out and get some support. And if you are thinking about your partnership is no longer working or that it's no longer meeting your expectations, my best piece, and I think you can speak to this as well, is don't let it go on for 3 or 4 years, right? I mean,
You start becoming a person who you don't want to be anymore. And when you physically can't put your hand on the door, when we all used to go into physical offices, when you physically can't put your hand on the doorknob to turn it and like walk in because the thought pains you, like that you've run your course at that point.
I love that. Yeah, that's great, and that gives a real kinda, sort of definitive answer of like, "Hey, this is, again, your decision and moving forward, you have options, you're not stuck." And I think if anything else gets taken away, from this whole conversation is there is that human cost, you are not stuck, and, again, we'll write the clown nose in the agreement. I mean, don't it's like whether or not it's enforceable, but I mean, I'm gonna make them wear clowns if that's what you really want. I don't advise it, but just kind of a an example. So
They have a button on your desk, so you can be like, here you go. You need-
no. Well, listen, thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. I think it's gonna help a lot of people.
Thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation and a different one. So I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate that too. All right, we'll talk to y'all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to dawnkennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.